10 Camels for My Wife, written by John Meadows, narrated by John Delino Ziegler, Jr. Chapter 1. The Magical History Tour begins. "Norma, they're taking the car away. Come and say goodbye." We stood at the front door and watched our beloved Mini Cooper, our first ever car, being driven off down the road. Norma shed a nostalgic tear as we went back into our empty, curtainless, carpetless, furnitureless council house in Runcorn. We surveyed our meager possessions. A solitary television, 2 deck chairs, and 2 sleeping bags are not a lot to show after 2 years of marriage, I observed ruefully. Our sparse surroundings suggested a burglary, an eviction, or perhaps a visit by court bailiffs. Our eyes met across an uncrowded room, and we burst out laughing. We could not have been happier. We had resigned from our jobs and sold all our worldly goods. The television was the last to go, so that I could watch the Montreal Olympics. Our laughter went on to another level when David Coleman's athletic commentary reverberated around the room. "The Cuban, Alberto Wantarina, has opened his legs and shown his class." It was the famously hot summer of 1976, and we were about to embark on an adventure of a lifetime, overland by Kathmandu by magic bus, and then on to the Far East in Australia. Our plan was to find jobs in Australia before continuing our journey to New Zealand, the South Pacific, and South America. In addition to sea travel, overland travel, and air travel, we will be adding an extra dimension: time travel. Occasionally, I will interrupt our space-time continuum and take out my flux capacitor, the same one I used in my first book on my Greyhound bus odyssey around America. It hasn't done much mileage, and, besides, it isn't illegal to turn back the clock on a time machine. I will explain more in the future, or possibly the past. We arrived in London and made our way to Earl's Court to pick up the bus. A small crowd had congregated on the pavement, and we approached a group of people who were loading up the bus. The first thing we noticed was the predominance of Australian and New Zealand accents, and amidst the clamor, it was difficult to identify who was actually leaving and who was waving goodbye. A small, disheveled, weather-beaten man with a tangle of dark curly hair and a Zabata mustache was ticking off names on his clipboard, so I approached him. "Excuse me, is this the bus to Kathmandu?" I asked nonchalantly, as if I had been at the Wigan bus station inquiring about the next bus to St. Helens. "Good day, mate," he replied cheerily in an unmistakable Aussie accent. He ticked off our names and welcomed us aboard. As the bus filled up with our new traveling companions, it was difficult to work out who were together and who was traveling alone. To our surprise, there was very little bonhomie at first, as people just nodded brief acknowledgments to each other and sat down. Everyone seemed lost in their own individual thoughts, as if they were daily commuters on their way to work. "This is going to be a laugh a minute for the next 5 months," I whispered to Norma, but she pointed out that it was a sad time for many of them, as she noticed the number of tearful goodbyes. The 2 drivers were last on board, and introduced themselves as Mick, the Australian, and a tall, red-haired Scotsman called Dave. We set off for Dover. In the bar on the cross-channel ferry to Calais, everyone started to intermingle and chat, and the group seemed to have quite an interesting demographic. On the bus en route to Paris, Mick invited each of us in the party to come to the front for a light-hearted introductory interview over the microphone. This was an excellent way to break
Sample complete. Ready to continue?